A very warm welcome to all of our attendees this morning. We thank you very much for joining us, and we also want to say a very big thank you to our sponsors, FEM and IOPSA, as well as the SIOSH, the Institute for Safety and Health, for accrediting this with a CPD point, as well as to PIRB for also introducing the CPD points for these toolbox talks. We want to also say thank you very much to you, the attendees, for constantly giving us your feedback and suggestions. We do have a few more answers for you about the questions that you raised last week on victimization, and we will definitely be getting back to you this week with some of the information that we have found out for you. But if you have any other questions, concerns, or comments, or even something that you would like to raise personally that you've heard or learned in these toolbox talks, please do not hesitate to get in contact with us. And as Jacques mentioned, please don't forget about the man in the van education through a conversation. This podcast is running every Monday morning at 8 a.m. And this will introduce plumbing news, education, and any other information pertaining to your industry. But let's get straight into our toolbox talk for this morning. Hazardous chemical substances, or hazardous substances as such. The definition of a hazardous substance can be any substance, whether solid, liquid, or gas, that may cause harm to your health. So hazardous substances are obviously classified on the basis of their potential health effects, whether acute, that is an immediate effect on your body, or a chronic long-term effect on a person's body. Now, how would we define this as a hazardous substance for you working out in the plumbing industry? This morning we are focusing on cement. And many of you actually WhatsApp me during the week and said, but Chris, how is cement actually a hazardous substance? Is this really classed as a hazardous substance? Do we still need to have hazardous substance stores and bundles and everything like that we've heard in the past? Well, not necessarily. Remember, the definition here says that a hazardous substance is classified on the basis of the potential health effects. So when we class a hazardous substance, there is certain protocols that we need to put in place according to the regulations. So we go according to the OSH Act, as well as the hazardous chemical substance regulations, as well as the manufacturer's guidelines on what we should be doing when it comes to the actual handling, usage, and storage of this type of substance. So let us again take a look then specifically at a cement. Now, for here, we went to Lafarge. This is your Portland cement, PPC cement. Lafarge is obviously a very widely well-known company. We downloaded their MSDS off of their website. And the information that has been taken is directly from the manufacturer. So let's go straight to them. Right in the beginning of their MSDS, they are referring us to the Occupational Health and Safety Act. In particular, they are now going to be looking at Regulation 1179, which was dated the 25th of August, 1995, stating that Portland cement, this is PPC, is considered a hazardous chemical, and all manufacturers and sellers of this product must provide an appropriate MSDS, or material safety data sheet, to users and other potentially affected parties. That would include emergency services. The reason for that is because if somebody's exposed to this type of chemical, they want to know what are the first aid measures or the emergency measures to assist somebody in this situation. So the categories of information supplied in this MSDS is laid down for us in the regulations according to SANS. So your SANS standard is what regulates really the information that goes into providing an accurate MSDS. And this is to ensure that the chemical compound that is related to us within the material safety data sheet is not just accurate, but it helps us to understand the most up-to-date influence on our body. Remember, we are talking about the potential harm, acute or chronic. So either an immediate effect that this chemical could have on us, or a long-term effect that it could have. We could use the example of asbestos. Many years ago, asbestos was widely used in mines, widely used in construction. In fact, we still have some asbestos work happening at the moment. but we didn't fully understand the medical issues that asbestos was going to have an acute effect as well as a chronic effect on people. The long-term effects of asbestos, as we know, is cancer of the lungs, and eventually fatality, which was a very, very dangerous substance to actually work around. Now, if we had that information back then, we could possibly have stopped it. So now we look at cement and we say, well, is this the next dangerous substance that we might be working with and having a long-term or a chronic effect on the workers? Well, let's take a look once again at what the manufacturer is saying. We recommend that you continually remind your staff that a vital part of planning any job is to assess the safety precautions that will be necessary. Then, before any cement work is started, the appropriate personal protection equipment and first aid measures should be readily available. So yeah, directly from Lafarge, they are stating that health and safety is an extremely important part of using their product. First of all, they've given us the MSDS to understand the chemical compound. Does it contain carcinogens or things that cause cancer? Does it contain an immediate threat, the acute problem? Or does it contain a chronic or a long-term problem for us? Well, let's go directly into the MSDS and see exactly what it states. And again, all this information is taken directly from their MSDS. So if you want access to this, I'll put it on the Dropbox for those of you who have access there. If you'd like this emailed to you as well, I will email it to you in PDF format. Otherwise, type in Portland, Lafarge, Cement, MSDS into Google, and you should come up with that PDF almost as one of the first or second results. So cement hazards in particular, again, taking this directly from the MSDS, exposure to cement dust can irritate your eyes, nose, throat, and upper respiratory system. This is an acute effect. In other words, it happens immediately. So as soon as you're exposed to this type of cement dust, this is what will happen almost immediately when exposed to it. It's an irritation. Now, an irritation is not necessarily something that's going to cause you major or significant damage, but with skin contact, it will result in moderate irritation to thickening, cracking of the skin to severe skin damage from chemical burn. Now, why do they say chemical burn? Well, this is because of the chemical that is actually inside the cement. This is like a caustic soda. Sometimes it is used inside cements. And when this builds up inside the nose or the eyes or the throat or the upper respiratory system, it can eventually cause chemical burns, even on the outside of your skin. But let's take a look at specifically with eyes. In the picture, you'll see someone obviously in the dusty environment, and they have a dust mask on. Very good. We applaud that. Perhaps he's got his risk assessment in the back and he's got his safety file. He's been trained. He knows what to do when working with cement, and he has his dust mask on. However, does he have goggles? No. So let us take a look from the MSDS. What does the manufacturer state about the hazards of their chemical on your eyes? If you're exposed to airborne dust, it may cause immediate or delayed irritation or inflammation. Eye contact by larger amounts of dry powder or splashes of wet Portland cement may cause effects ranging from moderate eye irritation to chemical burns and blindness. Now, there is not a single piece of PPE that can replace your eyesight. There is no company in the world that will sell you a second pair of eyes instead of goggles. So yes, we protect our lungs, we protect our nose. All of us are used to wearing masks at the moment, so we feel we're pretty protected in that way. Dust masks or COVID-19 masks, we're constantly wearing them, so we're happy with this type of PPE. But we draw the line at goggles because they messed up. They're a bit too uncomfortable, and we cannot see exactly what we are doing all the time. We have to keep taking them off, keep wiping them, keep putting them back on. Well, you cannot do that with your eyes. When you have moderate eye irritation, it may take some time to be able to gain your full eyesight back. When you start getting chemical burns, you may lose some of your eyesight or even start damaging the actual eye, to eventually the potential ranges to even blindness. Now, if that is a danger or a hazard attached to cement, should we then not put in the correct type of PPE as well as the correct type of first aid measures way beforehand? Well, something to think about for those of you who are using cement on site. Another thing about the exposure to Portland cement, obviously it's just a light grade powder, so this is again, directly from the MSDS. A single short-term exposure to dry powder is not likely to cause serious harm. So yes, short-term exposure, but exposure to significant duration can cause serious, potentially irreversible tissue, this is skin or eye, destruction in the form of chemical or caustic burns. So remember, you might be using it once or twice in a duration of work, but this prolonged exposure can eventually start building up and cause serious, irreversible tissue destruction. Now, you need to take a look at the type of work you're doing. Make sure it is task specific. How often are you working with cement? What is the duration in the day that you're working with cement? And what type of exposure levels are you allowing as acceptable on your site? And yes, we're looking at acceptable risk. You're not going to be able to limit all exposure. To a degree, you have to have some exposure to this chemical while working with it, but what precautions have you put in place? Do you have training and the knowledge to understand the dangers and hazards associated with this type of chemical? Have you provided the right type of PPE, not just safety glasses, but the right type of safety glasses for this particular type of cement? So the type of tissue destruction can occur if wet or moist areas of the body are exposed for sufficient duration to dry Portland cement. And this obviously is inside your eyes, your mouth, as well as your nose. That's really the areas we need to constantly watch, because this is the entry point of this dangerous chemical substance. So what are the first aid measures if this does happen to you? If any substance like the Portland cement or any other cement that you may be using, take a look at the MSDS. It will give you first aid measures right in that MSDS. If it's in your eyes, immediately flush eyes thoroughly with water and continue doing this with running clean water. Please, not water in a bucket that you are constantly splashing up and down. We want to have clean running water as much as possible for at least 15 minutes, including under the eyelids, trying to remove all particles that we can maybe see or feel inside our eyes, and call for a medical assistance immediately, especially if we're starting to find that this minor irritation is turning into a moderate irritation, because it could lead to long-term, more severe injury in the future. If it's on your skin, then just wash your skin with cool water and pH neutral soap or mild detergent. Please be careful when selecting your detergent. We do not want anything that will create a chemical burn on your hands. So please be careful with your choice of soaps or detergents that you are buying. Seek medical treatment in all cases of prolonged exposure to wet cement. So if you're constantly working with wet cement in and around your environment, when we say constantly, this is each and every single day, or if it is constantly happening on a specific job that you might be working with over a prolonged period of time. When we inhale any of this dust, we want to remove that person to fresh air as soon as possible. Seek medical help if coughing and other symptoms do not subside. So after a few hours or perhaps even a day or two, if the coughing is still continuing on and you've inhaled large amounts of this, you might need immediate medical attention. Remember, this is going into your lungs potentially, and hardening or damaging any of those potential cells or things inside of your lungs or even inside of your respiratory tract that could cause potentially long-term injuries as well. If you ingest this, obviously if this goes into your stomach, do not induce vomiting. If they are conscious, have the victim drink plenty of water and then call for medical assistance as soon as possible. So again, if it is a mild, it's just a small irritation, you can handle this as a first aid measure on your own on site, and then just as a first aider, you want to keep monitoring the patient. But should you see that there may be, and again, we're looking at potential problems, just take that person for medical assistance as soon as possible. Rather get those who fully understand the body to have a look at that. And we're talking about a medical doctor in this case. So yes, as a first aider, you can only go to a point, but really when it comes to something that might be an acute illness or injury and it is prolonged, this might turn into a moderate or potentially even a more dangerous exposure later on, and rather have the professionals look after this person. And this is all in the interest of getting you the best health and safety treatment that you require and actually that you deserve when working with dangerous substances. So yes, we know we cannot eliminate all hazards and risks on site, but what we can do is plan and prepare for the types of work that we are doing and make sure that we protect ourselves and our staff, our employees, and those who may be affected around us by our use of cement as well. Perhaps there's another hazardous chemical substance that you are using. Do you know the dangers? Have you got the correct updated MSDS to know exactly what type of exposure levels to expect before getting certain types of injuries, whether acute or chronic? Or maybe you would like to know a little bit more about your type of chemical that you are using. Drop us a mail, tell us what you're using. If you have MSDS, send it through to us, and we'll be sure to maybe look this up and perhaps provide a toolbox on this for you as well. As mentioned by Jacques in the beginning, please don't forget about the Man in the Van podcast every Monday morning at 8 a.m. You can find them on maninthevan.co.za, Apple Podcasts, Player FM, Iono FM, Spotify, Pocket Casts, and also on the new app Plumber. So once again, thank you very much for joining us this morning, and we hope all of you a safe week ahead.